It's Patrick LeGreed from Halfwheel, and this is the Caseti BigFlat, a lighter that the company released in the spring of 2022 after debuting it at the Tobacco Plus Expo in January. Now, as the name implies, it is a big flat flame lighter, meaning it offers a wider flat flame than what has become sort of the standard for multiple companies. In terms of that flame width, it is just about 3/4 of an inch wide, which is about a 48 ring gauge cigar. Now, to give you some comparison, this is one of my favorite lighters from Porsche Design, and that is the difference in size. So as you can see, pretty good size difference there. I'll show you one other lighter. This is a Zycar Verano. And again, pretty noticeable size difference in terms of how wide that flame is. And I'll give you a look at the flame with the lights out here in just a bit. As for the lighter itself, it measures 3 inches by 1.6 inches by 0.7 inches, weighs approximately 3.2 ounces, and is available in 8 different colors. There's matte black, navy blue, gunmetal, chrome, burgundy, burnt orange, salmon, and this one, yellow, each with an MSRP of $120 and comes with a 1-year limited warranty. Now, in terms of features beyond the flat flame, it offers a fold-out punch cutter on its base, while the flame adjuster and fuel valve kind of nest right inside that punch cutter. The adjuster requires a screwdriver or similar flat instrument, while the fuel valve feels a little bit more recessed than normal, which really affects the purging of the tank more than anything, since you might find yourself needing just a slightly longer tool. As for the punch cutter, works well. I'm not a real punch cutter user, but in the couple of cigars I cut with it, no problems whatsoever. You flip it down and the tobacco just kind of gets popped out right there. There's also a fuel window on the side of the lighter. It's not tinted, but it does work pretty well, and you can get a decent little look at some of the levels of butane that are in there. If you can catch it in the right light, you can see it right there. So, to use the Caseti BigFlat, all you need to do is wrap your fingers around it and give the silver ignition a squeeze. That will start the flow of butane and spark the ignition to give you the flame. Now, the flame will burn for as long as you have the ignition pressed in and there's fuel in the tank. To extinguish it, just release the ignition. Now, much like smaller flat flames, you then sort of paint the flame back and forth on your cigar's foot until it's lit. For thicker ring gauge cigars, this works quite well, just like you'd use a wide roller or a brush to paint a big wall or a thick board. Now, the flip side of this is that it's a bit much for smaller ring gauges or perfectos with tapered feet. The flame's opening, again, is just about the size of a Robusto, and the flame flares a bit, so you'll really have to exercise some caution with those smaller ring gauges. So let's turn the lights down and give you a better look at what this looks like. And so as you can see, that flame sort of comes up from 5 different points, although it's in normal light, it's not that easy to see. It then flames out or kind of fans out a little bit, and you end up with a little bit of a crown appearance of the flame. And I'll see if I can get a little bit better lighting on that. And as you can see, you kind of get this crown shape. Well, again, like I say, you just kind of paint your cigar back and forth with the flame, give it a nice easy toast. If you do smoke bigger ring gauges, definitely very quick use. But as you can see, it is a little bit much for a smaller ring gauge, so you do have to exercise some caution. But again, the ignition is real solid. That's actually turned up a bit, and I probably have a little bit too high right now. But just want to give you that good definition of the flame. And you can see it takes just a second to go out. You really don't need any high-performance fuel in this. I think this works just well with regular standard fuel. You certainly can use the Zycar HP fuel if that's your preferred option. But again, for me, just a bit much. I think this one works pretty well on its own. So let's get the lights back up here. And of course, I would be remiss in not showing you a direct head-to-head comparison of the Caseti BigFlat versus the S.T.Dupont MegaJet, which is a lighter that you might look at and think it was patterned after, or as somebody used a word, was a knockoff of. They are very similar in size. They are very similar in terms of flame width opening. And the design is not a complete replication, but it is fairly similar. There is, it's a side squeeze. Obviously, the vents are different. There's vents on the front and back of the DuPont. The only vent on the Caseti is back here on the back side. But I will turn down the lights and give you a quick view. So again, the Caseti is the one on the left, and the DuPont is on the right. And let's see if I can get these to show up side by side. Again, pretty even in terms of flame. Let me turn the sensitivity up on this just a little bit more so you can see. And again, Caseti on the left, DuPont on the right. So there are those two lighters side by side. Now, while I've often praised flat flames for the ability to deliver a good-sized flame without consuming a lot of fuel, I did find that the Caseti BigFlat was a bit thirstier for butane, which makes sense given the bigger flame, but again, not a huge downside, but again, just something to be aware of, especially if you're coming from an existing flat flame lighter. Now, in terms of liking the lighter, I do quite a bit, especially when I'm smoking those thicker cigars, and I want an effective yet slightly gentler flame than a standard triple torch. Yet, when putting it all together, I'm a bit less enthusiastic, and that starts with the $120 MSRP. It's tough to overlook, and while I appreciate having a punch, I rarely use it, though again, it does work well. I think I'd prefer an easier to set flame adjuster as well. Again, once this one is set, you don't really have to adjust it. Again, the only time that you do is if you were to switch fuel from a standard fuel to like the Zycar HP, you'll probably need to dial it back a little bit. It does stay set. But, again, it's a nice lighter. It works really well. It's ergonomic. It's pocket friendly. You can throw it in a travel case with no issue. Lots of color options. But again, $120 is still $120. And there are some great options out there. But what I really hope for this is that the BigFlat becomes a precursor to other more affordable wide flat flames to give this segment of the lighter market some more options. I know there's already a couple out there, and there are more on the way. So I'm really intrigued to see if other companies can use this as a sort of starting point to continue to develop and improve on it. Because again, I really do like the flat flame style. I think it's a great way to give your cigar plenty of flame, plenty of heat without overdoing it that you might get from a quad or a triple torch lighter. So again, that is the Caseti BigFlat. Thanks so much for checking out this review. And for more about the premium cigar industry, check out halfwheel.com.